Reza Aslan is an academic scholar of Islam who is often sought out by news organizations for his insights on terrorist incidents that involve perpetrators of the Islamic faith, i.e. Muslims. He can be seen on discussion panels providing the perspective of not just a Muslim, but a person who claims to understand the motivations and sentiments of Muslims as a whole. As such, he has a pro-Islamic bias, which is expected and which is actually sought out in these debates as a counter to the viewpoint that Islam is at the root of so-called Islamic terrorism. Mr. Aslan argues that Islam is overwhelmingly a religion of peace, being that there are close to 2 billion Muslims in the world. This is a figure commonly quoted and does not distinguish between Arab and non-Arab Muslims, since Islam is a religion, it's not a race. Mr. Aslan would argue that even if there were 10,000 active terrorists, that would only be a tiny fraction of the total population of Muslims. His assertion is that those 10,000, and I'm just using an example because we don't know exactly how many active terrorists there are not representative of Islam, but are rather extremists or even criminals motivated by geopolitical issues, not religious beliefs. Israel's reconstitution as a country and the resulting displacement of Palestinian Muslims and the West's perceived favoritism towards Israel and its incursions into Muslim holy lands are the main grievances these people have and act upon. This, Mr. Aslan says, is the true driver of terrorism committed by Muslims, not Islam the religion. One of Mr. Aslan's adversaries is Sam Harris, an intellectual himself. He disagrees. Sam Harris argues that Islam is in fact complicit in the acts of Muslim terrorists, as they are simply carrying out what is plainly written in the Quran. A quick search of an online version of the Quran will pull up passages that advocate or command followers to kill non-believers. Sam Harris argues that even if just 0.0001% of Muslims are terrorists, then that's 200,000 people, which is a significant number. So what we are talking about is an argument about cause and effect. Do Muslim terrorists do what they do to achieve a political agenda? Or is it because they believe their religion, Islam, commands them to kill non-believers who happen to be Westerners and Muslims who they deem are not devout Muslims? I suppose the most accurate way to get to the bottom of this is to ask as many terrorists as possible what their true motivation is for carrying out these terroristic attacks. Currently, I am not aware of any such major poll being conducted, and for obvious reasons. It is left to people like Reza Aslan and Sam Harris to offer their best guess, which of course has bias. But is there a mathematical model or way of reasoning that can decide or at least make the answer more clear? Maybe there is. Here is a statement to ponder. Very few Muslims are terrorists, but the majority of terrorists today are Muslims. I would like a mathematician to explain the significance of this truth. The pro-Islam side argues that since the overwhelming majority of Muslims do not commit terrorist acts, the ones that do are outliers or deviations from the norm, even though their numbers may seem high, thanks to the popularity and highly emotional nature of negative events such as videotaped beheadings of live humans. The anti-Islam side that believes Islam is at the root of terrorist behavior claim that terrorists are simply doing what the Quran tells them to do, which is to kill non-believers. One mathematical approach, the process of elimination, is to ask, if Islam did not exist as a religion, would Muslim terrorists still conduct terrorist acts? First of all, terrorists would not be classified as Muslim if Islam didn't exist. Secondly, they most likely would not be upset about Israel's activity against Palestinians, a claim again by the pro-Islam side, unless they were Palestinians themselves. There would be no common tie other than the geography strong enough to compel them to attack others that pose no immediate threat to their homeland and way of life. Religion has a way of unifying believers, and without it, there would be no motive for such aggression. Another mathematical concept is the concept of statistical significance. One of the things scientific experiments attempt to answer is whether action A causes result B. If an experiment was conducted 10 times with 8 result Bs and 2 result Cs, then it is said that result B is statistically significant, meaning it is strong enough to conclude a direct correlation with action A. So, if one were to do a Cochrane collaboration type analysis of worldwide terrorist attacks over the past 10 years, it would find a strong association or statistically significant relationship between these variables. Arabic, males, Islamic faith, born and raised in the Middle East, and terrorist activity. Now ask which variable, if taken away, has the strongest effect of reducing the likelihood of terrorism potential. When you remove the Islamic faith variable, you are left with this: Arabic, non-Muslim males such as Coptic Christians, born and raised in the Middle East. This group is not known to be associated with terrorist activity. So the conclusion is that Islamic faith is a common variable in Muslim terrorists that is statistically significant and therefore directly proportional to terrorist potential. It suggests that the religion of Islam has an inherent quality, blatantly obvious in the Quran or not, depending on how one chooses to see it, which compels some of its followers to engage in terrorist acts on behalf of or in support of that religion. Islam is complicit in the perpetuation of terrorist activity. Therefore, states have the logical right to be suspect of any follower of Islam by virtue of that person's faith in carrying out its responsibility to protect its citizens. It is understandably unfortunate for those Muslims who have no intention to commit terrorism, but the facts are starting to become painfully obvious. There is a major problem with Islam that is not found in today's Catholic, Protestant, Judaism, Hindu, or Buddhist religions. To ignore, minimize, spin, or make excuses about the bare facts will deny a resolution to the centuries-old problem and will only make matters worse.